Hello YouTube, Matt Yara here, your absolute favorite content creator, just spitting that daily wisdom, hopefully every day, not quite every day, need to get that consistency up, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm taking this video. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to let it free flow, let the universe speak through me as a vessel of consciousness and get into some fucking weird shit. I'm on my way to a jiu-jitsu tournament. I'm not competing. I went to, we had class this morning, so I did some jiu-jitsu. That was fun. And, you know, one of the guys that I practice with, he's a somewhat older gentleman. He's, one of my jiu-jitsu buddies had a bunch of tickets to a local tournament, and he couldn't go, so he gave me some. So that's where I'm going right now. And then I was gonna stick around for a second class, but then I got a text from my podcast crew that we actually had a podcast scheduled with somebody, and so I couldn't stick around. So I went and showered, and we went and recorded 2 podcasts today. So that was fun. And that's been most of my day. Nothing else too exciting. Did a little bit of reading, catching up on a little bit of work. And that's that. I invited a bunch of people to try to come out to this jiu-jitsu tournament, but everybody declined. It's kind of a last-minute invitation. Either that or I just don't have any friends. But, I don't know, whatever. So, that's my day. How's your day been? I like looking at I look like a Two-Face. Do I look evil in this shot? I'm all shadowy over here. One thing I've noticed before is when taking these videos, a lot of times in the beginning, I'm just kind of getting rolling, just getting the voice warmed up, because I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but it's important to just kind of push through until I maybe hit on something that I actually want to talk about. One thing that we hit on in the podcast that I've actually been thinking about, we've got these ICE raids going on. ICE is going out and snatching people off the streets, and obviously a lot of controversy involved. Some people think it's a good thing, cleaning up our society and getting the illegals out. And then there's a bunch of other people thinking that it's a little fucked up what's going on there. And I find it very interesting that it's another one of these, like, government policies where all of a sudden everybody abandons their alleged principles, right? So, like, in general, conservatives are, let's say, anti-government. They want small government. They don't want more government overreach. They'll tell you that government programs are inefficient and ineffective, and, they are a drain on the economy. But then all of a sudden, a Republican president says, hey, we're going to institute this government program. We're going to start snatching people up. And all of a sudden, they support this government program. I thought we don't trust the government. I thought the government's inefficient. How do you know the government's going to do a good job? There's no free markets. Where's the checks and balances to make sure that they're not going to overstep can't preach limited government and then support this giant government program that's clearly intruding on people's lives. Now, please don't take this to mean that I'm a liberal at all. Although I guess if we're going to point out how this is like liberal hypocrisy, the liberals were all on board with arresting people for not complying with COVID mandates. So they had no problem sick and old man government to, fuck with people's lives when they were doing that. But anyways, this comes back to the nature of propaganda, because this person very close to me was talking about how he was justifying these ICE raids because he said, oh, they're catching all these rapists. Now, I heard that, and I don't like to be too argumentative, but to me that just reeks of propaganda, right? Because this is not the Let's Catch Rapists program. This is the illegal immigration enforcement program. It's not about rape. So why do they have this need to justify the program on the basis of they're catching rapists? What this sounds like to me is a persuasion tactic, because we already have the police whose job it is to catch rapists, right? So if we have the police to catch rapists, why do we have ICE catching rapists? That's not their purpose. It's not the reason for the program. So to justify ICE raids on the basis of catching rapists doesn't actually make any sense, and is just typical persuasion. So I thought that was kind of silly. And again, personally, I think empowering the government to run around and snatch people up in the streets is there's a slippery slope. What's their process look like? How do you know that they're going to do an effective job? How do you know they're going to be thorough? How do you know they're going to be fair? How do you know that they're not going to overstep their boundaries? Especially, as a conservative, people who tend to be conservative are supporting this program. I don't know. Seems pretty Soviet Union-y to me. I think the purpose of the program is not to clean up society. I don't think illegal immigrants are really the problem in society. I do think we should have a secure border. I think that's pretty reasonable. But I do think that the real purpose of ICE is to normalize or desensitize the idea that the government now has the power and authority to just go snatch people up. That's the real purpose, in my opinion. My very humble YouTube driving around ranting opinion. That's all it is. Now, why would the government want to normalize it? I don't know. But I do think that the government primarily exists to exert power over the population. I don't think it exists primarily to benefit the population. And that is its stated purpose, but I don't think that's how it ultimately functions. Just my opinion. So, not a fan of ICE. I don't support it. And that's where I'm going with that. What else did I have for you? Yeah, I don't know. Fuck ICE. I think they should get rid of it. I don't support it. And, yeah, strong ending there, huh? It's a real strong, powerful closer to really drive my point home. Those are just my thoughts there. What are your principles? What do you think the government's true purpose is? And don't you think that even if the government's alleged purpose is to, stabilize society, are you not worried that people will pursue power and corrupt it? Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I'm not ashamed of the label conspiracy theorist. It's an interesting thing going on today because now everyone is more and more of a conspiracy theorist. And there's this growing camp of people that are just anti-conspiracies. And I think that once you get into too many conspiracies, you can definitely get into some squirrely territory and making a whole bunch of wild, unsubstantiated claims. Like the one that I made. I don't have a way to substantiate that the purpose of ICE is to destabilize and normalize government violence against the population. It's just my opinion. That's what it seems like to me. America has been fine until now with illegal immigrants. So the idea that right now we need to start grabbing these people, I just think that there's always an alternative motive. There's always something else going on besides the stated purpose. What we can say for sure is that ICE was not created to snatch up rapists. That's for sure. And yet they're using that as a justifier, which means there's something else being covered up. That's the underlying thinking behind what I'm saying. I don't think the government gives a shit about catching rapists. I don't think the government really gives a shit about deporting illegals. I don't. But I do think the government has an interest in normalizing government violence against the population. We've seen that in the past. We've seen it in authoritarian countries. We've also seen that here in America. Think about the civil rights movement. And the government was trying to put down those peaceful demonstrations with violent means. Looking back, I don't think anybody watches those videos of those protests in the South where the government is spraying innocent, peaceful protesters with fire hoses and sicking dogs on them. Nobody was looking at that and thinking that this was a justified act. So if you think that America is better than the Soviet Union or any of these authoritarian governments. It's not like there's zero history of that government overreach doing, enacting illegal violence against the population. We literally have that history here. So, I don't know, I think America's a wonderful place. But this idea that America, being a democracy, has this, flawless history of justice is a little ridiculous. And the idea that conservatives are justifying this program, not recognizing it as government overreach, is a little scary. It's not scary, it just goes to show you how easy it is to manipulate people. Where they don't have, actual principles that they revert to. Alright. That's my little rant for you. Thanks for listening.